Welcome to It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach with your host, Sister A. Legree. I hope all is well. It's been a minute that we've been here, but we're back. Again, this is It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach, providing information and support while encouraging hope and faith. You can log on to our website at igbattmho.org. You can also email us at support@igbattmho.org. But definitely go on our website, email us, let us know what you think. You can also, if you have any questions or anything like that, definitely, reach out to us. Today, what I wanted to talk about, one of the things that was in the news that I saw, and I wanted to share. I'm going to read the article, but there was a situation in Texas where you had a mother of two who died by suicide, and it appears that she also harmed her children as well, right? So as we were talking about this, there were a couple of people saying there's no way that a mother could do that. There's no way that a mother could do that. And I thought it would be a good idea just to kind of talk about depression, especially as we move into the holiday seasons, because unfortunately, a mother, you're assuming that a mother, you're right, a mother wouldn't do that. But a mother who is ill, a mother who is ill, who has no control over for that particular moment, might do things that you might be, wouldn't think of. So let me read this article to you, and then we can just kind of talk about it. It says, a father is mourning the death of his 5-year-old twins after they were allegedly killed by their mother shortly before she jumped to her death in Florida. And I'm just going down here. And then he says, I feel an extreme amount guilt as I failed them, the father wrote, adding that he is now left wondering if he could have done anything differently to prevent this. Okay. And then it says the authorities discovered the children's bodies in Sanford, Florida home on Friday after their mother, and they listed her name, was found in a nearby river. According to the sheriff, Dennis Lima, early Friday morning, deputies with the department responded to a call from an eyewitness claiming a motorist had stopped their vehicle on the crest of a bridge. The caller told officials that a woman seemed to slide out of the passenger window of her vehicle and jump into the St. Johns River in what appeared to be an attempt at suicide. Once deputies arrived at the scene, they saw a woman floating, Lima said. Following the discovery, investigators arrived at the family's home and found Ahmad and Ava, who appeared at first to be sleeping. They were later discovered to be deceased inside the home. The cause of death for the children was not being announced at the time. Hudo's mother told authorities that her daughter struggled with depression throughout her life, but there's been nothing to indicate that she may act out with this level of violence toward her children or die by suicide, Lima added. I keep rethinking, and I wish things were different. Okay? So again, this was, let me see, I wanted to make sure I referenced the article. This article came out of People's Magazine. I'm just trying to make sure I get it. On our post, I'll make sure I'll put a link to it, because it looks like I didn't save it here. Because I like to reference things so people can go back and see it. Okay, right. This came out of the people.com. It was like 5 days ago. This was, in their article. So basically, what happens, a 5-year-old twins found dead in Florida in Sanford home after mother jumps to her death. And from reading the article here, according to the grandmother, her daughter had a history of depression. The father of the children saying he had no idea that this was going on, and I'm paraphrasing. So let's talk about depression. I want to share this. This is called Depression in Women, 5 Things You Should Know. This is free. You can get this from just logging on to nimh.nah.gov. We also have this on our website. But I want to talk about depression in women, 5 things you should know, and then we'll talk about this article as well. What was interesting to me in this article is that both the grandmother as well as the father of the children both expressed, are now dealing with feelings of guilt. The mother is saying that, yeah, my daughter struggled or had dealt with depression for a long period of time, but she didn't see this coming. The same thing with the children's father. He didn't see it coming. Well, let me tell you one thing. Unfortunately, when a person has made up their mind to die by suicide, sometimes you may not see it coming. Sometimes you may, in retrospect, you may think about things or different signs, but a lot of times in the moment, you may not realize it. Because one of the myths is that people will say, well, if a person that says they're going to die by suicide, they're not really going to do it. But that's not really true. A lot of times people will, especially if they had an attempt before, they will attempt suicide again shortly after, right? And they're upbeat, they're looking good, and people would never expect it. And it could be a lot of reasons. Sometimes we think it's because at that time a person in their mind is kind of figured, okay, I am going to do it, I am going to kill myself, let me kind of get ready, I'm going to give away stuff, I feel good about my decision, and I'm ready to go. So I'm just saying if you are a person who has a person in your family who has died by suicide, and you may be beating yourself up saying, I wish I'd have known, I wish I'd have saw something, I want to encourage you not to do that, because that may not have been the case. I'm quite sure that if you really knew that your loved one was going to die by suicide, that you would do something. But you didn't know. In retrospect, you can look back at it and see different signs, but in the moment you didn't know, right? Which is so important, which leads me to my next thing. Number 2 is that when you see a person, a change in behavior, a change in their attitude, it could be a change in sleep, a change in their mood, is that you ask them, hey, what's going on? Have a conversation with them. It's okay to say, hey, I'm noticing that you've been really down lately. I'm noticing that you're not sleeping well. I'm noticing, that you just don't seem the same. Are you okay? It doesn't take but a minute to ask those questions. And then if you feel, if need be, just coming out and asking, hey, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about taking your life? It's important that we ask. I know, in the world that we live in, it's very fast-paced. Everybody's really busy, and we don't pay attention to certain things. But, if you're with a loved one and you notice a change, ask questions, okay? So number 1, there are 5 things I think I want to leave everybody with. Number 1, if you have a loved one who died by suicide, please do not beat yourself up, okay, because you didn't know. Number 2, if you notice, if you're with someone and you notice a change in their behavior, ask them how they're doing. Ask them, say to them, I'm noticing this is the change. I'm sorry. And then ask them what's going on, right? Have a conversation with them. Number 3, don't be afraid to ask the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? So let's talk about this depression in women, all right? As I said, I got this from the NIMH.nih.gov. I usually give these out to people. But let's read this, okay? It says, being sad is a normal reaction to difficult times in life. But usually the sadness goes away with a little time. Depression is different. It is a mood disorder that may cause severe symptoms that can affect how you feel, think, and handle daily activities such as sleeping, eating, or working. Let me stop here. All of us, or many of us, will get sad at some point. I'll get sad, if I lose my job. You may get sad if you get laid off, or if you're unable to get the car that you want, or somebody says something to you. You have a breakup. Whatever the reason, many of us, all of us, I would say, will at one point in our life get sad. But depression is a little different. Depression is like, if I'm sad because I don't have a job, right? If I get one, I'm still going to be sad. When we talk about depression, right? Depression is sadness is part of depression, but it's a sadness that doesn't lift. Even if you hit up the lottery for $1 million, it may lift for a minute, but it's always there. It's still consistently with you. So when we talk about the difference between sadness and depression, sadness is more based on environmental factors. It's more based on things that's around you. If you get a job, I feel better. If I break up with my boyfriend, I'm depressed, but I get another one, now I'm happy. So that's a little different. Depression, it really doesn't matter what happens. Good things could be happening all around you, and you're still feeling a little sad. So that's essentially kind of what this is saying. And I'm not going to read it, word for word, because you can get the get the brochure. Depression is more common among women than men, likely due to certain biological, hormonal, and social factors that are unique to women. Now, depression, number one, depression is a real medical condition. You can't just snap out of depression. Most people with depression need treatment to feel better. So let me stay with number one. You can't just snap out of depression. Just like I was saying, when we talk about the difference between sadness and depression, sadness, you can kind of snap out of it, right? Because when something changes, whatever the situation was that caused you to feel sad, when that changes, you can snap out of it. Depression, not so. Depression is it's a medical condition, right? We say a person is depressed once you have certain, we look at certain symptoms that last for at least 2 weeks consistently. So in order to say a person is depressed, there are some clinical markers, some things that we look at before we say this person is particularly depressed. But again, you just can't snap out of it. So sometimes you may, see someone that's really down. Again, it's important to ask them, hey, I'm noticing, this is what I'm noticing. How are you doing? What's going on? Whatever. Just having that conversation. Number two, most people with depression need treatment to feel better. The treatment can be medications, sometimes it can be talk therapy, sometimes it can just be having someone to talk to. So the treatment will vary. It's important that you talk to, if you're feeling depressed or feeling sad, let's say, you've been feeling sad for a certain period of time and it's not going away, then it's important to talk to someone, right? It could be your primary care doctor. You can start there. You can start talking to a close friend, but you want to start talking to someone. Number two, depression can hurt literally. And I'll read this. Sadness is only a small part of depression. Some people with depression do not feel sadness at all. A person with depression also may experience many physical symptoms, right? So some of the symptoms of depression could be, as we said, persistent sad, anxious, or empty mood, feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, irritability, feelings of guilt, withdrawal. You start feeling helpless, you feel worthless, decreased energy or fatigue, difficulty sleeping, loss of interest, moving or talking more slowly, feeling restless, difficulty concentrating, changes in appetite or weight, thoughts of death or suicide, aches or pains, headaches with no physical cause. Again, these were just a few symptoms. So I want to read this again. And I'm reading this from the brochure here. Number two, depression can hurt literally. Sadness is only a small part of depression. There are other symptoms, right? Some of the other symptoms. If you have been experiencing any of the following symptoms, any signs and symptoms for at least 2 weeks, you may be suffering from depression. And I'm going to read what these are. Number one, persistent sad, anxious, or empty mood, feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, irritability, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, helplessness, decreased energy or fatigue, difficulty sleeping, early morning awakening or oversleeping, loss of interest or pleasure in hobbies or activities, moving or talking more slowly, feeling restless or having trouble sitting still, difficulty concentrating, remembering or making decisions, thoughts of death or suicide, aches or pains. Now some of you may say, well, I have some of these, but I don't think I'm depressed. Okay, but what we're reading off here are some of the signs and symptoms that people who may be depressed may have, okay? If you're having any of these signs and symptoms, you want to kind of take a look at what's going on, what's happening, what's going on. One of the big things that people will do, talk about sleep. I have a lot of people that will tell me that, I just want to go to sleep and not wake up. I just want to go to sleep and just forget about all my problems. And, sleep kind of makes things better for them. So again, when we're talking about depression, it's important to know that we're not talking about sadness. We're talking about depression. We're talking about a medical illness. We're talking about an illness that has signs and symptoms that can be treated. So if you're depressed, there is treatment out there. You don't have to live with the feelings. You don't have to live with the mood, right? And number 3, there are certain types of depression that are unique to women. One, we talk about premenstrual syndrome or PMS, okay? A lot of times for some women during the monthly cycle, you may find that you're having challenges with your mood, the moodiness, the irritability. You may see some depression. Then we have the perinatal depression, I'm sorry. Is that what you get while you're being pregnant? Women sometimes become depressed. And then we also have what we call the postpartum after depression, so we have that. So when we look at depression in women, as we started out saying, women tend to be more depressed than men, or deal with depression more than men, and there are a lot of reasons for that. We think it has to do with the biological, hormonal concerns there. But it's important to know whether you're a male or a female, that depression is treatable, right? When we look at another thing it talks about, not every woman who is depressed experiences every symptom, and that's the same with everybody, right? A lot of times you don't experience all of the symptoms. Some women experience only a few symptoms, others may have many. I know I'm talking about women, but just when we talk about men, for example, you see a lot more irritability and anger in men. You see more of those types of symptoms. Also, what we tend to see is that a person will go to their primary care doctor with a lot of physical symptoms, a lot of symptoms, I'm feeling down, I don't know what's going on. So a lot of times people will go to their primary care doctor first, which is fine. And I say that to say, if you're a person that dealing with depression, or you think you may have depression, and you don't want to see a psychiatrist, you don't want to see a psychologist, I don't want to see anybody in the mental health field, then go see your primary care doctor. And your primary care doctor many times can kind of point you in the right direction, or sometimes he or she may be able to assist you with some type of medications if that's needed. But again, everybody who is dealing with depression doesn't have to take medication, all right? So people, I don't want to take medication. That's fine. Then when you have therapy, there are other options that you can utilize besides taking medication. But for many people, medications will be the gold standard, especially if you've been dealing with depression for a long period of time, especially when it's impacting your life to such a degree that you're having a really hard time functioning. You may need to take medications for a short period of time. Medications doesn't take the place of the other things that you're doing, exercising, reading the word, praying, fasting. You still want to do all of those things, but sometimes you may have to add, say, the medications with that. The medications are not like drugs that make you feel high all the time. It just kind of gives you a little edge where you're able to think better. Number 4, as I said, depression can be treated, okay? So when we look at, I want everybody to go out, go online, and get this booklet, Depression in Women, 5 Things You Should Know. Number 1, depression is a real medical condition. Number 2, depression can hurt literally. We talked about the signs and symptoms. Number 3, there are certain types of depression that are unique to women. 4, depression can be treated. And 5, there's research that's going on out there to help women deal with depression. Now I want to go back to this article that I read, that I started reading. And I'm going to read it again. It says, a father is mourning the death of his 5-year-old twins after they were allegedly killed by their mother shortly before she jumped to her death in Florida. Okay? And I'm going to skip through. It says, authorities discovered the children's bodies in a Sanford, Florida home on Friday after their mother was found in a nearby river. According to the sheriff, early that Friday morning, deputies responded to a call from a witness saying that they saw someone jump. Okay? When the deputies got there, they saw a woman floating. After they saw the woman, they discovered her. They went to the home, and that's where they found the twins, who at first they thought were sleeping, but it turned out they were dead. The mother says that her daughter struggled with depression throughout her life, but there's been nothing to indicate that she may act out with this level of violence towards her children or die by suicide. Okay, this is what the mother is saying. Okay, so we know that this is a person who has been struggling, and I'm using the words here, with depression throughout her life. Many of you have been, quote unquote, struggling with depression as well throughout your life. Many of you know people who have been struggling with depression. It's important that if you know someone like that you reach out and you give that extra support. Again, just because a person is struggling with depression doesn't mean that they're going to kill themselves or die by suicide or kill their children. That's not what that means. What we're saying is that we need help, because when you're depressed, when you're chronically depressed, the only thing that you can think about, or you can think, are negative thoughts. The only thing you can feel is negative. All you can think about is what you're not doing. You know, when we talked about some of the signs and symptoms, it's not uncommon for people to really feel worthless, to start feeling hopeless, to feel helpless, you know, to start feeling cynical and get really critical. You know, nothing's going to happen for me. Things have never worked out. And we get into this tunnel vision. We start talking through what I call the depressed brain. That depressed brain is always going to bring us down. That depressed brain is always going to see the negative things. You know, you're going to start feeling, some people feel like, you know, I'm worthless. Things will never work out for me. I always make mistakes. Look at my kids. They will be so much better off. So when you say, how would a mother do this? When you're depressed and you're caught up in those negative thoughts, though, you start thinking all types of things. You start convincing, that negative brain will start convincing you that your kids are better off without you. Your kids, you know, you start thinking that, you know, my kids, I'm worthless. I can't even take care of my kids. I can't even provide for my kids. I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good father. All right? I'm worthless, you know. And you start having all these particular thoughts going through your mind, and you look at your kids and you think, you know what, they would be better off without me. They would be better off not even being here. So when you talk about, again, to answer the question, I don't believe that mother would do that. When you're chronically depressed, you will do anything, because when you're looking at what's going on here and what's going on physically, when you're depressed, we're talking about some changes in the brain. We're looking at biological changes. You don't have the strength. You don't have the physical, the emotional strength to begin to challenge those negative thoughts. And what happens is, which is why I tell people it's so important, is that we don't cut ourselves off from people. You know, it's important that we're around people. It's important, let me just say this, I know I'm kind of going on and on, but, you know, one of the things I see a lot on the internet, people are proud that they don't have any friends. Oh, I don't want to be around people. I don't like people. I don't care about people. And they just feel that's a good thing. They feel it's a good thing not to be around people. I'm not going to ask nobody for nothing. And unfortunately, people like that, you're a prime candidate, okay? A prime candidate for something like this, or when things go bad. Because what happens is, you get in your mind, you start off thinking that you don't need people, I don't like people, people hurt me, people are unsafe, you know, people, you know, I don't want people to talk to me and all this type of stuff. And then when you need people, then you don't have anybody around. And then when you need people, you start feeling like, well, I'm not going to ask anybody because they're not going to do it. Because that's what you thinking, that's what you told yourself. So again, what happens is, going back to, again, that question, how can a mother do this? When you're depressed, the only thing that you have is going on in your mind are your negative thoughts, your depressed brain thoughts. Your depressed brain thoughts is telling you, I can't make it. I'm by myself. I'm so alone. You know, nobody loves me. My mother, I'm a burden to her. You know, you start thinking all of these kind of thoughts, all of these thoughts here. But unfortunately, you don't have anyone to challenge those thoughts. And see, when going back to what I was saying earlier, when if you notice a change in a loved one, or if you notice a change in yourself, let's just say, let me start with number one. You notice a change in your loved one. It's important to reach out and ask that question, hey, I'm noticing A, B, or C. Are you okay? And you want to do that because you want to begin to have a conversation. Because when we're conversating, to use that word, that term, in our minds with ourselves, we're not always telling ourselves the truth. We may be telling ourselves how we feel. You know, we may think it's the truth because I'm thinking it. Everything you think, I think, is not the truth. You know, it's, now that's my truth. That's my truth. This is how I feel. But it's not true. You know, when you say things like, I'm worthless. I'm worthless because nobody cares about me. Well, let's look at that. Do you know everybody? Who is nobody? You know, you don't even know everybody. We only talking about 4 or 5 people. So when you say everybody, you're really only talking 4 or 5 people. So is it really true when you say everybody? Well, no, it's not really true. No, it's not. You're only talking about 4 or 5 people. When you have people around you, so you can begin to kind of break up that negative thinking. It's harder to do it when you're by yourself, and it's even harder when you're depressed, because when you're